Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian Farmer at Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for not Monday, but Tuesday. I feel like a couple times today I've been thinking that it's Monday, but it is not Monday. It's the first trading day of the week, but it is a Tuesday. So it is Tuesday's video. And I'll cover a couple things in this video. I'll try to be kind of quick. As always, this is a market recap video where I try to basically go over what's interesting in the market, whether it's something that's going up or going down, as well as what I traded in the market too, and what I chose to trade in the market. So I try to make it pretty hands-on in terms of either if you're a member and you're kind of already have a feel for what's going on in the trading room, or if you're just looking for a quick market recap. So and this way you can kind of get an idea or feel for what we do and how we try to add value on a daily basis. Before I get into any of those things, risk disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer there. So really quickly, the raw numbers for today. Qs did finish up for the day, up about 0.5%, but you could see, and this is why I have this column in here, which is percentage change from open. It gives you a sense of was there profit taking, was there some selling pressure through the course of the day, or were people actually looking to kind of add and put on new risk. And today was one of those days, I think, and I can actually change this a little bit, but because I had this highlighted from earlier today, but today just felt like a day for a lot of names that have been working well, such as the semiconductors and so forth, that there was some profit taking, after the moves that have been happening. A lot of names, I call it either the hockey stick pattern or just parabolic type moves, and I think obviously if you go through those names, one of the names I'm going to start with is Broadcom, right? And it's really it has a lot to do, or it can have a lot with your expectations. This is a stock that when we went long this name, and when I put this out as a trade idea I think at this point it's a couple weeks ago, the stock was trading at around like 630, and the stock went all the way up to 920. I mean, that's a crazy move. This stock is going to report earnings this week. And, if you manage to kind of hang in this trade this long, at this point, this is profit taking, right? Stock gaps all the way up to, moves all the way up to 921 on, nothing basically new, I think, from the stock today, but that's one hell of a reversal, and that could mark the top in Broadcom could be for a while. I mean, you don't normally see moves $600 to 900 on look at how the stock has previously traded, right? And look at the volume that this thing has traded. So it's important to understand that. One of the questions that I got in the first 15 minutes, when the market started to kind of come in a little bit, the Qs was, hey, was there a headline, or was there something going on? And it's just the fact that the market, you can't expect this market to go up every single day. So here's where we were on the open, started to kind of go higher. And you kind of forget a little bit, because the way the price action was at the end of last week, it didn't feel like there was a seller in sight. But that's not how the market's normally going to behave. So having those realistic expectations, one of the things that I went over in the pre-market session today for TTG members was just talking about how overbought we were coming into the open. I think the RSI on the Qs was a 77. And if you're not familiar with this study or indicator that's on the bottom of my charts, it just kind of gives you a sense of extremes. And when you see something like that at 77 RSI, things are pretty cooked, right? And it doesn't mean that things can't get more overbought. They always can, but you have to understand, in terms of percentages and probabilities. Like, hey, what's the probability that we're going to continue to go ballistic to the upside? It's probably not a good probability. It's probably, I associate things like, okay, maybe there's a 20% chance that we continue to kind of go higher, but for the most part, there's going to be profit taking for some of these moves. They're just too ginormous. And right, and here's Nvidia, which finally still up for the day, up 3%, but gap up, and this feels kind of toppy too, right? This is at top of value or level that I would watch is 398. Full disclosure, I sold my position. We could talk a little bit about that, but this was something I got into at 380. The first day I got back into Nvidia. I was taking targets that day, because you just don't know with that big of a move that we saw last week, right? Here, oops, let me see if I can bring this up. So this was just on in the after, or the this was Thursday morning, right? Wednesday night, I think it was last week, Nvidia reported. So right into here, I didn't get it all the way at the bottom. I got it at 380, right? And the name was kind of, it didn't go straight higher from that point. It really started to accelerate Friday, to the upside, and then it had a big day today. But yeah, I mean, all the way up to 419, and I didn't catch 419. I caught where did I get out of this trade for the day was 414. Right. I mean, but that's a nice trade, right? And I was on a couple of broadcasts, asking like, well, what do you do with Nvidia now after this big gap up? You wait for a little bit of a dip. Now, you're not going to get, my opinion was that day that we weren't going to get a dip like retracement of 50% of the move, but you might see a little bit of selling pressure. So you kind of leg in. And I was lucky in this situation. But maybe not, maybe unlucky, I guess, if you want to consider because I could have put on I guess a bigger portion of a trade, but I said, hey, I'm going to leg in here, right, as we see some profit taking on this, and I never really added any more back to the position, but this worked out well, right? And some of these things you have to put in your pocket to say, hey, how greedy are you going to be with some of these trades? Some greed is important because you have to have bigger winners that to offset. Everybody does have losers, especially if you've traded anything besides tech over the last month. But we're going to be doing more of this trade review. I've decided to do something that I haven't done before, which I always provide an end of month, which tomorrow is end of month. So I will provide I usually provide a P&L video, just going through what some of my bigger winners were and what some of my bigger losers were, going through and seeing how I executed, going back and the review step in your trading process is so important. If you don't go through that review process, right, you're not going to get better at what you're doing. So it's important, and again, my goal, and we were just kind of having this conversation after hours, is to, those losing trades that I have, don't stay in them, right? Don't stay wrong. And I think that I executed pretty well because I did trade areas outside of tech this month. I just realized that they weren't working and I got out of them pretty quickly. Exxon was a name that I tried a couple times this month and I was out very quickly because it just, it didn't work very well. It didn't have the momentum. So we're going to be going through things like planning out your trade, right? A couple names that I did very well with are names, this month that I revisited, right? So you don't have to continuously come up with new ideas, right? You could go back to some of those, some of those areas of the market, like Oracle was a nice trade, and it helps to have a couple things that don't move as fast as some of these semiconductors were moving. But, this was a nice breakout here. Sorry, I'm going back too far. This was a nice breakout of the value area here, got a little bit extended, right? And you could see on the RSI too, using the same type of thought process, but this got all the way up to like, I can't see where about 103, right? And then it gave a nice dip back to the 20-day moving average. Now, of course, there's no guarantee that was going to hold, that add into the 20-day moving average, but it did like a champ and just got a little bit lucky just being in the right areas of the market. All right, we're going to talk more about that too in the open forum where I'm going to give members the opportunity to talk about what their big winners and so forth. But I think if you review, and that's why we do this practice of going through and what were the best areas performers of the month, right? I always start with that. And that helps to understand too, to say, okay, did I have any trades in those areas, right? If I did, great. I go through the execution and see and drill down to make sure I executed those trades well, but at least I was in the right areas of the market. If there was an area of the market that did well and I wasn't in it, my next question is, hey, why, why wasn't I in that area? How did I miss it? Right. I see too many people on Twitter, which we talk about all the time, arguing with the market, right? That's not for us, right? We want to, we want to take as much as we can out of this market. We don't want to argue with it and say that shouldn't happen or that's not the way that this normal happens. That's a waste of time, right? And I get it. Some people gather more and more followers because they're always talking about something that shouldn't be happening, and they're arguing, right? They're arguing with the market, right? That's not for us to do, and to say, oh geez, this has only happened so many times. Well, great. If it's only happened so many times, did you exploit it this time, right? And then you could look at it after the fact and say, geez, was I aggressive enough taking profits, right, on something that's pretty rare in the market, right? Or did I ride the trend appropriately? So we'll talk more about that. I don't want to make this too long of a video. Let's go back to the market for a second and talk about, what really worked today. I continuously, so here's how we operate, right? I'm looking for rotations to take place, right? And that doesn't mean I'm going to jump into, this is my watch list and how I kind of build my watch list. And it's some of that is just that. It's watching and setting alerts. And if names don't trigger, like Boeing is a good example. We saw a lot of weekly calls that went up in Boeing. Now they had, one of their, it wasn't the CEO, but somebody else important speaking, but this is a very sideways chart. So yes, I want to monitor and watch this chart because eventually Boeing could begin to kind of move out of this consolidation and move higher, but I don't have to catch the very first move that that day, because this could go through more cycles of going sideways, right? It could go sideways for another few months. It could go sideways and break down, right? So, but it's something that I want to continue to monitor, because like we saw with the semiconductors, and again, I'm not saying that the same thing's going to happen with Boeing, but look at Lam Research, sideways, 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 and then once it went, it really went. So that's why we kind of monitor some of these things. You put an alert, but half the time, you put in the work and you don't take the trade, right? Let's talk about it. So, again, I will have areas that may not be ready yet, but they're important to watch, right? And that's what we do at Tribeca Trade Group, is to say, hey, let's take a look at this setup, right? And let's be on cue when it does begin to unfold and it does begin to break. Oh, I have Amazon on here twice. I guess I was really looking at Amazon, so I could take one of those off. But Riot it was an interesting one, right? It was up 10% today, and you have to understand too, like today felt like a big momentum type day for some of the names that had high short interest. But you have to understand this type of stock, it stalls out a lot, right? So if you could catch some of these things for a scalp or a day trade, right? And, and then understand that it may not be the day that this really moves. And I tweeted this chart out on Twitter last night. I was talking about a possible break of 1394. Well, note the stock's not there yet, right? So in between, until it actually breaks the 1394, which I view as significant resistance, it might provide some day trading opportunities, right? Another one too that I mentioned was this IONQ. I mean, again, this is a big momentum name, right? Some of these names kind of sat back a little bit, right, and burned off some of that like crazy momentum, right? Then the next thing to do is to kind of monitor, right, and then know where there's some resistance, right? So here is your your support for the week, and here's your resistance. Right, anything above there, things can get really exciting, but still, this is a nice little trade, especially if today wasn't a day that you wanted to add a lot of risk because many things are kind of overbought, then you could go back and put your day trading hat on and look for opportunities like that. Upstart was a name that I participated in today. I didn't catch the full move today. It was up 16%. I was just looking for a move. And I think if you go into how we talked about this. It should be in our charts channel, actually. This was right from the beginning of the day. There's the INNQ, same thing, right? Talked about, hey, this could be where the stock goes to, is 1138. I'll go back to maybe the beginning of the day for Upstart. Well, maybe I didn't put it in here. Sometimes I forget to do that. Let's see, Upstart. Yeah, so right into here, right? So here's your support to trade off of 24.98, and resistance is 28.84. Now, again, some of these names will be able to kind of go all the way through there in one day. So, and Upstart, similar to what I was just going over in IONQ, right? Just again, a little bit of pullback, volume tightened up a little bit, another name. So again, it gives a nice little trading opportunity, right? On a day where I'm not really looking to add risk, because I think that the Qs are overbought here, right? And I'm waiting to see if there's some type of rotation, right? Waiting to see if there's some type of pullback. But, and NOX is a name I'll be watching tomorrow. Kind of same thing, really aggressive move, back and forth, didn't take out the highs in the previous attempt. Let's see if this kind of will tighten up and maybe we'll get back above the 5-period moving average, right? So where do I have my alert for this one for tomorrow? 1782, right? And that's what I would be watching for tomorrow, and then possibly a move through the value area. And if we get more than that, then so be it. But first off, it has to trigger first, right? And then as I'm going through, if I do add a name for a trade, like, Tesla was the name on Friday, right? And I brought that over, I don't have many trades on, you could see. So you could see how on my position sheet, it goes very similar. It will, I'll move a name over from the on deck watch list to my swing trade open positions, and then then I'll begin to kind of put it here, lay out what targets I'm looking to hit, where my next target is, and manage what the open gain is in the name, as well as where I'm taking targets, right? And the most important thing, and again, we'll talk about this in the member end of month video, but this is a little bit more of a difficult one. We're at resistance right now in Tesla. So that's why I've been aggressive taking targets. But I ultimately, I would love to see if this stock will get going, but it's going to have to get through this resistance at 205, right? It's made several attempts this year at the bottom of value. Maybe this is the third, maybe the third attempt is the charm. But at first, it needs to get through this 202.70 level. And I fully understand that over the last couple of months, Tesla has not been able to do it. So what do you do in the meantime? You take profits into a day when the stock's up 4%. Right. And then, this may set up again. So if it fails here, right, then if it pushes back to the 20-day moving average, or the 50-day moving average, that might set up for, another attempt, right? Because I think that's maybe the personality is starting to change in Tesla. But for confirmation purposes, I need to get it over 205. So I'm going to end the video here. Like I said, I don't want today's video to be too long, but a lot of other things going on. There's going to be a lot of interesting names that may either set up for, let me get off of this screen and go into this, the names that are going to be reporting this week, right? CrowdStrike was something that I took some more profits today. But I may have some trades on for further upside potential, but really, Salesforce, which was a name I was discussing earlier today, right? I took profits in this name on Friday, so I missed the up 1.6%. But this could eventually make it back up to 237. Whether it does it on earnings, I don't know. But if it comes back and if it's weak, if they say something weak on earnings, I would want to see if it holds 197, as that might provide a setup, because I believe that this is a good company. And I believe, right now, software tech obviously is very strong. So I want to continue to look for opportunities, and in some areas on pullbacks. All right, guys, I'll leave it there for today's video. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.